So, welcome to Saturday afternoon. I don't know about you all, but this feels like it's been intense. Seems amazing that we just started sitting yesterday morning. Um, and it's been very busy for almost everybody with the preparations for the Jukai. I'm sure leading up to it, even before we arrived on Thursday. So I brought a couple books. I thought it was kind of good nap time, just read you a story. I was sleepy. No, I would like to share just a little bit about Jukai in a way, hopefully, that brings us all in, and then make a little bit of a segue to something else some material I was exposed to a couple of weeks ago that I thought might be of value to you as well, make the connection. And it really comes up for me going through the rehearsal for the Jukai. So the literal translation is receiving the precepts on the part of the student and giving the precepts on the part of the teacher, the preceptor. But it's really, where do they get given and received from? It's freely available. And one thing that was coming up for me is the heart of the precepts is for those actually formally taking Jukai. In a way, it's affirming one's basic nature as synonymous with the three treasures, with the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And we're all always doing that as part of our practice, whether we're taking Jukai or not taking Jukai. So we're always investigating, resting into, wrestling with these aspects of our nature, which is oneness, diversity, and the connection between the two of those, the harmony between the two of those. So we all do this together. We all do this together all the time. We happen to be marking it as an occasion for some people who have chosen to formally enter our lineage. And that's what we'll experience on Sunday. But it's all inclusive. We're always all doing this. And it's a great gift for those who take up the Bodhisattva path in a formal way that way, because it's what we're vowing to do is to serve others. And fundamentally, what we're vowing to do is see ourselves as synonymous with everything else. So it totally serves us to take the Bodhisattva vow, because those are inseparable. I think it's almost a little bit of a trick. Because it sounds very ennobling and laudable. I'm going to save all sentient beings. I'm going to serve all sentient beings. What does that mean actually practically? And so I think when we really start seeing into that, I remember at a certain point feeling like we say these vows all the time. It's like there's no going back. But really what is really the fundamental meaning of that? And that's a lifelong investigation from my experience so far. So I just kind of wanted to bring that up around, because there's been a lot of focus of we're preparing for the ceremony and we're, there's certain folks that are doing it and like that. And just to really make it all inclusive for everyone. Yeah, and there's no difference between who's receiving it and who's giving it. Absolutely none at all. There's the function, and Cho and I were talking about this before session started, that that I had this remembrance of when I was head trainee up at Sun Mountain Center, and my teacher was Tenshin Roshi at the time, and he said when I was asked to be head trainee, he said you fill the role, and the role will fill you. So you fill Jukai, and Jukai will fill you. You fill the practice, and the practice will fill you. And that is exactly the point, is we put ourselves all the way in. And who knows what happens, but it's just the act of putting ourselves all the way in that is the difference. And that's what we're always fighting against too, right? But I want it to look like this. I want to get this badge. I want it to change my life this way. And that's what we struggle against as human beings. It really struck me when we did the Gatha of Atonement. It must have been the first morning. That this is just part of the human condition, that we have this great anger and ignorance, that we from our body, speech, and thought. This is not sin. This is called being a regular human. And we have this aspiration to do good for others, don't do harm, the pure precepts, which is great. It's important to have good intentions, because we also have the tenets: not knowing, bearing witness, loving action. So it's important to have the intention to do good for others and not do harm. But it's also super important that we don't spend the excessive amount of time that most of us do beating ourselves up about not doing it perfectly. And it's so, I'm watching two people in my personal life struggle with wanting to stay alive. And so much shame and so much self-denigration. And they're wonderful people. But there's so much internalized negativity towards self. So it was also striking me, so this is kind of what I wanted to segue to. So I want to kind of keep it focused and short. So some really emphasized short to us this morning. I had the opportunity, there's a teacher named Henry Shookman, and it looks like Diana, like Jose knows him. He's based in Santa Fe, New Mexico. You're aware of him too. And he is in the Sanbo lineage. So technically speaking, I think he's a cousin of ours, because he had transmission from Yamada Roshi, who had transmission from Yasutani. So we're related, but not directly. And he's the authorized teacher in that lineage. And they're based in he's based in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I'd done a couple of like sort of workshop things all on Zoom. I went by their place when I was in New Mexico, because I just was really curious to see it. It's super cute. It's just a little adobe, and it was like just our funky style, if we were in New Mexico. but so he was leading this. They called it a session. And it was just like 2.5 days like this right now. And it was kind of amusing to me because our sitting group in Idlewild, so our practice that we sit a period of meditation and we discuss a book each week. And we're reading Opening the Hand of Thought by Jukai Roshi right now. And we had just read the section on no toys. So Sesshin without toys. It looks like we've read that too. You see you nodding. And it was just really funny going into this retreat with Henry's group because it was from 10 to 4. He was encouraging people to lay down in the afternoon. There was poetry. He did readings, and there was some meditation, but it was light, I would say, generally, but not the actual practice of it. But it wasn't like intensive all day long. And they went on walks out on the property and stuff. So I was kind of, it was right after we had read that chapter, so I was kind of laughing because Uchiyama Roshi is saying at his place at the time, this was the 1993 edition of his book, but at the time he was saying when they sit facing the wall, he sits facing the wall. No monitors, no kiyosaku. I don't even think Dharma talks. You know, it's very, very totally like refined down to just sitting. So, so this was what Henry was experimenting with. And I think the point is he's done a lot of intensive practice. I think he lived in a monastery for like 13 years and has done investigated a lot of other forms of intensive practice. And my perception, he's in his early 60s, my perception is he's in this place, which it's a funny kind of resonance, because I don't think he's technically in our lineage anymore, but I remember when Genpo Merzel Roshi started doing big mind workshops. And it was the same thing. He felt like people can get this without having to be in this for 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years. And he had this way of kind of bringing people into seeing their true nature through his big mind workshops. And I feel like Henry is experimenting with, are there gentler ways to bring people into an experience of awakening? And he talks about, and I'm just going to read you like just a tiny, so that what he's calling this, and this is why I wanted to talk about it, because I just like what he called it, and I want to offer it in a way of, I want to offer it, which is that he's calling it original love. He's calling Buddha nature, emptiness, whatever true nature, he's calling that original love. So let me just read you just one thing he said about it. Like I said, could be nap time, but he's talking about all the different practices he's done. And he says, whatever the practice and whatever the time or place in which we did it, what each practice uncovered was love. Love for life, love for self, love for others, love for this world. Love was the basis. So he's kind of take it as you will, which of course you will, take it as you will. But I think he's offering that truly coming home is coming home to love, but not love in the kind of ordinary necessarily ways. That too, but not just that. So, we have this term like in Zen, magnanimous mind, like parental mind, like big mind. And so you experiment with this for yourself. I'm just offering it up for your consideration. Um, I, the part of the reason I mention it though is certainly in my own experience of myself and talking with so many other people, I feel like there's so much of our practice that is involved with cutting through the slog and sledge and garbage of how we cover up our innate goodness, our innate self, our innate true nature. And we're so occupied with our self-loathing at times, our opinions, our views of others. But I don't know about you, but most of the time it's preoccupation with views of ourselves. And then what we think other people are thinking of us. You know, our ancestor, Elder Bob, who's passed on, he was a psychiatrist, who was a teacher in our lineage. And he talked a lot about, what do you think other people are thinking of you? And you're responding to that most of the time. And it's such a, it's like such a turning, I think, for us to actually focus on what's happening here. What's happening here? And when it's difficult, to actually be willing to be with what's difficult. Because all of you know, you've lived enough life to know that if we can do that, something else arises. It doesn't just stay the same. It repeats. A lot of it is on repeat. You know, it doesn't mean it goes away completely, but we can kind of see through what's underneath it. And it just seems like that's a lot of what our practice is about. Because the bottom line, and it's, you know, it's super, super basic about certainly Soto Zen practice, is we're already whole and complete exactly as we are. I believe that is the fact. And all the other stuff is our, you know, kind of, it covers it up. And in a sense, you know, we spend so little time just resting in and enjoying this basic nature of what we are. Trying to fix it, trying to change it. So I guess I'm offering the term original love as maybe a little bit of a shift in, and you know, we have that in the verse of the Kesa, you know, a field of benefaction, formless field of benefaction. That's original love. That's our original nature. So let's really investigate that and investigate what covers it up. That's what Sesshin is about. That's what practice is about. But since we're in this container, which is amazing, there are so many of us physically in this room together, it's kind of the most it's been, I think, since pre-COVID. And we talked about this earlier, yesterday. It seems like a long time ago, but they're energetically, it's different. You know, I've had very powerful session doing it on Zoom. It's really a great opportunity that we're actually physically with one another and the energy of that. I have a room in my house that is basically our home temple for our meditation group. And people come there to do other activities and they say, wow, I feel so safe in that room. I feel contained in that room. There's energy that we generate by this practice. And it nourishes others too. So let's let it nourish us. But that will only happen if we stick with it. It only happens if we stay with what's happening. And when it's hard, it's just hard. And we've got resources of one another. And tell somebody. What's that song? Tell somebody the way that you feel. You can see it beginning to. I think it's James Taylor. Sorry, I'm completely dating myself. Anyway, but that's important. It's important that that we all know that there's resources and help here, and it's really, really important if you get overwhelmed that you don't just leave and not tell somebody what's going on. Because this, we talked about this as well, this is a radical practice. This is a safe space, but what we're doing is not seeking safety. What we're doing is breaking through our ideas of what that is and how I'm going to keep this little one safe. So we accompany one another in that. And I really do believe that's what is liberating as well. But we're going to fight like heck. It's scary. I also think that all our ideas about what's scary are just that. They're ideas as well. I used to, when my children were much younger, and I was practicing fairly intensively at Zen Mountain Center, I really, my idea of why I couldn't let go was I was scared that I wouldn't care about my kids anymore, that I would somehow leave my family, either by, I don't know, evaporating into the cosmos or not caring. And I felt like as a mother, I had made an obligation to actually be attached to these beings. I think that was just fear. And some people do that. I mean, we got a prime example in the founder of Buddhism. He left his family, he left his son and his wife. So it's not for naught. I seriously doubt that me leaving my family would have as large of impact on the millennial of life. Millennium, whatever that word is. You know what I mean? Thousands of years. But I think it was mainly fear of what I thought was going to happen. Because I was around my Sumi Roshi, and he's the kind of most awake person I've ever been around. And he didn't disappear. And he cared a lot about people. He struggled with being a family person, that's for sure, because his first sense of himself was as a monk. And I don't think that ever went away. So he was ill-fitted for the job of being a husband and a father, too. And I straddled those. But we all make our path. We all make our path. And it's different for all of us, how we make our way. But what we're doing together is the same thing. And maybe that's oneness and diversity right there. I think the only other thing I wanted to, just by chance, who knows what chance is, right? I was at the end of the table in the entry hall for breakfast, and so I'm looking across at all the books. And I was like, I didn't know Shishin wrote a book about the five ranks. That's super cool. And it turns out it just came out in 2024. And in the acknowledgments, Choa was in there that he was a reviewer of the book. I was very impressed by. So Shishin is a teacher in our lineage and somebody that Seisun is good friends with and very fond of. So he had direct transmission from Maizumi Roshi and then Nado Roshi by Bernie. But anyway, I just want to read you this little bit here. So I'm really excited to read this. So he's talking about the lessons of looking at the five ranks. Through my many years of Zen practice, I've learned that I have gained nothing and have accumulated nothing, but I have let go of many things. Tozan, the person who formulated the five ranks, emphasizes that point over and over again. There is no need to laud any accomplishments in Zen. Overconfidence and the pride of accomplishment serve no useful purpose. It is better to keep letting them go while progressing on the path of the Buddha. Life is a mystery. We don't know what will happen in the next moment. We don't know whether we will be dead or alive. Learning to maintain equanimity in the midst of the unknown is one of the greatest lessons of Zen. So all the preparations are done. Y'all have finished your kechimiyakus, the raksus are done, the table is set up. Cho and I basically know what we're doing. And so now we have the rest of Sesshin, which is fabulous. This afternoon and this evening and early morning tomorrow. So let's dig in and take advantage of this wonderful opportunity to be together. And if this was of any curiosity to you to explore original love, go for it. Don't feel any obligation. The main thing is really dig into our own lives and fundamentally trust that we can do that and we have the support to do that. And we have the longing to do that, or you would not be here. There's lots of other things to do on a Saturday afternoon in San Diego. So let's steadily keep on going.